What do you call a puppy with no front legs and no back legs? Well, it really doesn't matter what you call him because he's not going to come anyway. Ooh, that's a cruel joke, isn't it? You know, Americans often make cruel humor about unfortunate situations, many times involving weaker things like animals. According to Peter Singer, author of Abnormalities in Human Nature, we do this in order to show our own superiority, our own incapability of ever being in such a situation as that. But most of us would never make such a cruel joke, would we? Yes, we would. Every day, millions of Americans are involved with indirectly playing a very cruel joke on thousands of animals. The problem I'm speaking of is animal experimentation in the cosmetic industry. In discussing this problem, I'd like to first show you just why animals are used. Next, we'll look at the most commonly administered tests to these very unwilling victims. Finally, I'll offer a solution to this problem. Now, I'm not out to change the entire world into a bunch of vegetarians, nor am I at this time even going to question the use of animals in the scientific study of disease. But to take an animal and to put it through torture or death just so we can look pretty or smell nice or to keep our hair from blowing in the wind is just a little bit ridiculous. Well, why use animals in cosmetic product testing? Well, we use animals because basically humans aren't stupid enough to do it themselves. These tests hurt, and no anesthesia is used so as not to interfere with the results of the testing. Each year, millions of cats, rats, dogs, birds, monkeys, rabbits are tortured, mutilated, and killed, all in the name of beauty. Over 75 million animals a year. Many people think it's a federal law to use live animal testing in protecting our own selves. It is not. The Food and Drug Administration regulates the testing of cosmetic products. In 1980, the FDA issued a pamphlet which stated that there are no set regulations for the use of live animals in testing cosmetic products. Well, many people also tend to just disregard the test. Why? Because the tests are done by scientists and done in a scientific laboratory. And in America, when anything is done in the name of science, we tend not to question it. But we need to remember that having a brilliant scientific mind does not always go hand in hand with having a humane and compassionate outlook toward animals. Well, let's take a look at the most commonly administered test to these very unwilling victims. The test is called the LD50. It's the abbreviation for lethal dose 50%. The LD50 is the amount of a chemical or chemicals that it takes in one testing to kill exactly half of the animals being tested. In an LD50 determination, 3 types of animals are used, 2 rodents and a dog. Well, there's no set rule for how many of each animal is used, and in one determination, often 100 to 150 dogs or rodents are destroyed. Let's take a look at the 3 most common ways to administer the LD50. They're explained by Jeff Diner in his book, Physical and Mental Suffering of Experimental Animals. The first way to administer LD50 is through directly implanting the chemical into the animal's stomach. This is done by forcing a tube down the animal's nose or throat, or directly putting the tube into the side of the animal. Cosmetic chemicals are then dumped into the animal's stomach. The animals are then watched until exactly 50% of them die. Now, in the first experiment, if 50% do not die, if 48% die, or 51% die, that's not good enough. All those animals are taken away, all new animals are brought in, and the test is begun again. The animals that suffer the most, though, are the ones that do live through the experimentations. If they have not died within 2 weeks, though, the scientist humanely kills these animals. The second way of administering the LD50 is by forcing the animal to breathe the product in a vapor-like form. Dogs are always used for this part of the testing. A helmet, much like a football helmet, is placed over the dog's head and sealed off. Into this vacuumed area is emitted several cans of deodorant or hairspray. Well, guess what happens to the puppy? The third way to determine an LD50 test is by directly applying the chemical in a lotion form to the animal's skin. Once again, dogs are always used for this type of testing. The dog is placed in stocks to prevent any movement. His body is shaved. Then his skin is brushed with a steel-tooth comb. The lotion is applied directly to the skin, and the area is wrapped in a rubber sleeve for a period of 24 hours before it is checked. Can you imagine the blistering, the disintegration of the skin? Dinah reports that the average length of this type of testing is 90 days on one animal, but he says that there have been accounts of dogs that have spent their entire lives of 7 to 10 years in stocks and wrapped in rubber sleeves. If these three methods of administering the LD50 are not bad enough, the LD50 has spawned a child, the Dray's eye irritancy test. This is the method for determining what would happen to a human eye if certain chemicals got into it. Well, animals are used for this testing also. To be specific, live albino rabbits. The rabbits are placed in stocks from which only their heads protrude. Into their eyes are dripped 100 milligrams of a concentrated solution. Now, this is very painful because rabbits do not have tear ducts that can wash the irritant away. They can't even blink to obtain any relief because their eyelids are held in place by clips placed there by the scientist. Many rabbits break their backs or their necks trying to escape from the pain. This type of testing is responsible for the deaths of over 2 million rabbits a year. And what makes these two types of testing even more horrible is the fact that they're imprecise. They are not accurate testing. According to Henry Spira, head of the coalition to ban the LD50, you cannot take a chemical and put it on one species of animal and determine what it would do to another species of animal. He went on to state that the test, the LD50 test, is criticized by the very toxicologists and scientists that are forced to use it. The Dray's eye irritancy test has also been proven improper and inaccurate. Michael Weil of the Palam Institute in Pittsburgh developed his own cosmetic. He sent it to 25 different cosmetic laboratories that employ live animal testing. He waited for the results. From the 25 different laboratories, he received 17 very different answers to his questions. So these tests are inaccurate. And these inaccurate tests are killing 75 million animals a year in America. Well, what can we do about it? Well, if you want to help animals, the first place you have to start is with your own lifestyle. You must realize that when you go into a drugstore and go up to the cosmetic counter or to a department store to cosmetic counter, that you are voting for or against animal suffering with your own consumer dollars. It does little good to give money to animal charities if you turn right around and spend thousands of dollars each year on the very products that cause the torture to begin with. Well, how do you know which companies cause this torture? How do you know which companies use live animal testing? It's very simple. You write to PETA, P-E-T-A, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals in Washington, D.C. This organization will send you a list of companies that do use animals in their testing procedures, but it will also send you a list of companies that do not. When you receive this list, you write those companies that do, and you tell them you know what they're doing, you do not support it, and you will not buy their products any longer. Perhaps they'll listen to you. And you question them. Ask Johnson & Johnson if their motto, "No more tears," applies to those rabbits whose eyes are eaten out during the Dray's eye irritancy test. Ask Avon if their slogan, "Looking better every day," applies to those little puppy dogs whose skin is eaten away in the LD50 determination. You can ask the very same thing from Maybelline, Menon, Gillette, Procter & Gamble, Amway. All of these companies and many, many more use live animals in their testing procedures. You also offer these companies alternatives that they know about, but you tell them you know about them also. Tell them they could use computer modeling or live cell tissues to determine if a product is toxic to humans. They could use the Ames test. It's a very inexpensive test which utilizes salmonella bacteria to determine if chemicals are carcinogenic to humans. They could even use human placentas. By placing a product on a human placenta, you get the same reaction on the placenta as if you placed it on a live human. So you see, there can be beauty without cruelty. So the next time you see an ad on TV for a great new perfume or a wonderful new eyeshadow, look beyond that model's smiling face, and you'll probably see an animal that spent days or months or even a lifetime in order for you to look better. Well, what do you call a puppy that hasn't got any front legs or back legs, or any eyes, or any skin, or any sanity? You call that animal a cosmetic experimental animal. But it really doesn't matter what you call him. He still can't come.